Здравствуйте, уважаемые зрители! Сегодня вас приветствует канал ТВ Экстра, и у нас необычный гость Сэл Рэйчел. О нем подробнее в нашем сегодняшнем интервью. Good morning, Sal Рэйчел.
Good morning.
How do you do in USA?
Well, the USA is a very diverse country. So I just came back from the southeastern United States visiting family and friends, and it's very hot and humid there this time of year. And now I'm back in Los Angeles where it's hot and dry, or warm and dry.
So it's still summer, and I would like to talk about your life purposes, what you are doing right now. I'm talking about channeling on planet Earth. Is everyone safe, or what is the goal and benefits from both sides? I mean, channeling from your side as human and other.
It's actually a rather complex question, so I'm going to break it down into pieces. Because there's more than one form of channeling, the most basic form is called telepathic transmission. And this is where the channeler establishes a telepathic link to the spirit or group of beings, which may be spiritual or they may be extraterrestrial or astral. So there's many dimensions of beings that channelers work with. And the simplest way is just the telepathic link, which means you're only channeling the ideas and thought forms of the entities with maybe a little bit of their energy added to your own energy as a channeler. The next deeper way is what people typically call conscious channeling. And this is where you energetically merge a part of your being with the entities, but you're conscious. You're sharing space in your consciousness with an entity or group of entities. And this is the form of channeling I use with my personal spirit guide, Leah. I use telepathic transmission with all of my other spirit guides. And then the last form is basically mediumship or trance medium, which is where you go unconscious and allow an entity or entities to take over your physical body and mind and speak through you. And typically the trance channel has no memory of what is being brought forth during a trance channeling or trance medium session. So I do not prefer that form of channeling. The main advantage to that form is that it gets ego out of the way. The personal ego of the channeler is less likely to be able to interfere in a trance channeling than in a conscious channeling. That's the only real advantage of trance channeling. There's a lot of disadvantages. It's usually hard on the human body to do a lot of trance channeling. I've known a number of trance channelers who had needed help coming back into their body after allowing another entity to speak through them. So then you have an example such as John of God, the healer from Brazil, who was channeling all sorts of light and dark entities. And he got himself in a lot of trouble because some of the dark entities were directing him to do things that were not in integrity, that were not in a high state of honesty. So he got in trouble for some inappropriate relationships and things like that, because he was also channeling dark entities as well as light entities. He was like what we call a clearinghouse, a place where any entity can jump in and start speaking and doing things. And so getting back to your question, because this is all just background information for your question, about 90% of the channeling that is on Earth at this time is not accurate, clear, pure channeling. And there's two reasons for that. One is you have the unclear channel, the person who is bringing forth the entities has a lot of unresolved ego issues or emotional or psychological issues, and is coloring the information with fears and prejudice and bias. And then the other part is the entity or entities themselves are not clear and pure. They have a limited understanding of the universe or of God in some cases, depending on who the entities are. So you may have unclear entities and unclear channel, and together they make for an unclear message. So, of course, the other complexity of the question would be, how can you tell when a channeled message is clear and pure and light and accurate? And if it's prophecy, you really cannot tell the accuracy. You can guess on the accuracy. You can feel intuitively the accuracy of a prophetic channeling, a prophecy. If it's hard information, such as there's 0.2% of the population that dies from a virus, for example, you can get fairly accurate data of that nature. But when it comes to predicting exactly what will happen, usually the prediction itself is pretty accurate, but the timing is not accurate. So the biggest problem with channeling is the time frame of the prophecy. Even with my channels, my entities, the founders, they have predicted quite accurately much of what is taking place in the world, but they were off by 5 to 10 years on some of the events that they predicted would happen. And they are now have revised some of their timetables by as much as 10 to 15 years. That's because time is influenced by free will. And you have a large number of human beings on Earth who are holding on to the old way of doing things, the so-called status quo or matrix, who are deeply attached to the matrix, let's say. And because everyone is a powerful, creative, spiritual being, a large number of souls thinking negatively will delay prophecy. If it's a high, positive, uplifting, expanding prophecy, they have the ability, because they're powerful creators, to delay the implementation of the so-called divine plan or higher consciousness. As you know, higher consciousness does not force itself on people. If you have high, clear, accurate guides, they will gently suggest, they will seek to motivate the light workers to wake up and do more to help the planet, but they will not coerce, they will not force, they will not try to make people wake up, and they will not judge people that are asleep and say, oh, we hate this group of souls because they're not waking up, they're causing the problems in the world. No, they encourage us to love the tyrants, the dictators, the criminals, the terrorists, whoever it is that seems to be stopping the good from manifesting on earth. They encourage us to love those souls. And they do not judge human beings as being less than they are. They look across to humanity. They do not look down on humanity if they are true higher beings. Now, if they are not true higher beings, they may be very judgmental. They may be scolding us like an angry parent. Oh, how could you be so stupid to believe that? What's wrong with you? You're a failed species. You know, those are not clear clear entities, or clear channels, probably. Another thing to watch out for are channels that are predicting that, you know, the spaceships are going to land any day now and take everybody off the planet that's supposed to be saved. And, you know, that's a violation of free will. And the higher beings know that. And you will never hear the true higher beings talking about any day now the spaceships are going to come and rescue us from our own folly as human beings. No, we didn't come here to be rescued when things got difficult. We came here to do the difficult work, to help people awaken, to do whatever we can to help people awaken.
You made your personal choice to be a channeler about more than 10 years ago. What do you think from the current time? Is it a good choice or what?
Well, I have a group of beings that I'm working with. My personal spirit guide, Leah, came to me over 30 years ago, but I didn't start working with her publicly until 15 to 20 years ago. And then my guides, the founders and the Arcturians and Lord Sananda came to me at various times. So I've been doing conscious channeling and telepathic transmission for between 15 and 20 years publicly. I have known these beings, of course, much longer than that, but I was hesitant to be a channeler because I've seen how so many channels get compromised and they allow their own personal ego energy to interfere. So right now, I'm working with just the group that I mentioned, and occasionally with Isis and Thoth, who are also two beings, and occasionally Archangel Michael, not very often. And that's pretty much it. I work with just this small group of beings because it's safer that way, actually. And I don't need to be like one of these channels that works with 100 different beings of all different levels and vibrations. So to me, they're family. They're part of the cosmic family, and they just don't have bodies here on Earth. That's really the only difference.
But can I say that they choose you? It's more correct that you choose them.
It's both. We chose each other. Just as when you strike up an earthly friendship, when you begin an earthly friendship with someone, it's kind of a mutual decision. Hey, let's be friends. And I know it's a little more involved than that, but I'm using that analogy because it goes way back. Leah is my twin soul in the higher dimensions, so we've been together millions of years in the higher planes. So and then the other guides, they were looking for who can we make our best approach to Earth through, who can we speak through that will more accurately decipher our messages. And so they choose not just myself. Of course, there's many other channels. The founders are currently working with about 25 other channels, human channels around the world, but they chose me because of my scientific background. I chose them because it felt like a good match and I felt comfortable. I don't feel depleted after they speak through me. They're able to interface with my higher self very wonderfully. So these are some of the reasons why we chose each other.
During your work, I mean, as a channeler, are you helping them? Can you say like that?
Yes, it is a two-way street. A lot of people don't realize this, but we help the entities sometimes as much as they help us. It is a mutual or synergistic symbiotic relationship, which basically means a win-win. And there are, a lot of misperceptions that because they're spirits and they come from a higher dimension a lot of times, that they have a lot more knowledge than human beings do. And that's not necessarily so. They don't have, for example, if they've never been in a human body, they don't have the personal experience of being in a human body. The closest they come is coming through us and experiencing to some degree what it's like to be in a body through the channeling method, especially if it's trance channeling. They get a really hands-on feeling approach to what it's like to be in a body. But even in a trance channel, it's not the same thing as incarnating on Earth. So it's kind of the next best thing to having a incarnate experience on Earth, to be an entity trance channeling through a medium.